Greg, a lot of us know Greg, and maybe you just got to know him this week. He's going to have a great time. These are rules in any industry, there are rules in any industry, any profession. However, these rules can be bent and broken sometimes. Greg will tell us about how to break those rules and free yourself to even be a better auctioneer. He's from California. He's got his BAS. Give Greg a big round of applause, please.
Well, good morning. Sound level okay? Every auctioneer always wants to know if he can be heard or she can be heard without trying too hard. Thanks for getting here early this morning. I know a lot of us were out late last night, karaoke included, and I appreciate y'all making the effort to get out here. Did everybody get a chance to read through the bios that were in the little handout that we got? Because there's some great bios, and if you read through those, you'll see that my first fundraising auction could be summed up by the words catastrophic, avoidable, thrilling, successful, and validating. And I want to tell a little story about that because I'm a storyteller and that's pretty much how I live and communicate. But talk about this catastrophic, thrilling, successful, and validating start to fundraising. It was entirely avoidable. Now, when I did my first fundraising auction, I had never attended a gala before. I had seen one benefit auction, and I just went in full guns blazing. I knew enough to get the lots in advance, to do my own script, to do my homework, and to show up, relatively prepared. But I showed up hungry, figuring that I was going to eat dinner, not knowing that the auction was going to take place during dinner. So I managed to get a meal from the band right before I went on stage. So I had this nice big steak and potato salad 5 minutes before I was supposed to take the stage, which was okay because the sound system failed. It sounded great. It was one of these in the ceiling sound room for 700 people. And during the sound check, it sounded great. And then when 700 people got in the room, it sounded about like this. I mean, you just couldn't hear anything. And I was like, oh my goodness. So we spent 45 minutes repositioning the band sound system. So then in the 700 person room, we had 150 people this way that could hear, and 150 people that way that could hear. And that was pretty much it. It was a dim room. It was really dark, and being my first fundraising auction, I didn't know that I could ask for things like the lights to be turned up. So when they started holding up clear plastic paddles, I'm very proud of myself for just forging through on that first event and making it happen. And I'm proud of the crowd for coming along with me because I moved in insane increments. It was a school event. They'd never had a professional before, I'd been a professional auctioneer before this, so I'd done some auctions, but I went in $500 increments at this school event. 500, 1,000, now 15, go 2. And everybody panicked and came with me, and they wound up setting a record. It was the most money they'd ever raised before. I don't recommend it as a business practice, but the thing that I took away afterwards was that every one of those things was avoidable. And I learned over the process of the next few years that it's not just the auctioneering that makes us. Auctioneering is fun. I wouldn't do this job, and I'm sure most of you wouldn't if you didn't enjoy being on stage and getting people to pay more than they should for stuff they don't need in support of a good cause. But your performance on stage is what lands you gigs. People see you and they think, oh, that Murray guy, he's great. And the Eye of the Tiger song, we want him. And so they hire you, they hire us when we come in. But for me, I found that it's the consulting that keeps them. Right? They love the performance, but then I get in and I start working with them and talking with their committee and getting to know them and working through things. And it's over the years, I have clients that will never let go of me, hell or high water, or until they just really get bored of me, that I've been working with. That first event, I still work with them. Over 500 events later, they're still one of my clients. And what I found over the years with consulting is that there are rules that I've developed that I believe apply to every event. And what I want to try and communicate to you today is that a truly great consultant recognizes when a rule applies in a given situation, but is willing to go against it. And so today what I want to talk about, at a certain point, we're going to define the rules of benefit auctions. And I've got an exercise designed that hopefully is going to get you to think from your clients' perspectives, and hopefully at the end of this talk, if there's anything you'll do, you'll leave with the concept of being open to the exception. Now, a little personal history, because again, I live by telling stories. I started focused solely on benefit auctions in 2004, and since then I've done over 500 events. And is that a little or a lot? Well, it doesn't matter, because it's my perspective. It's my experience, and I base all of my consulting on my experience. Comparing what I've done to what you've done is like comparing apples and dump trucks, and I'll be the dump truck in this case. But I want you to trust your experience in this. And early on, I'm blessed. I have a great mentor who helped guide me along, and he took me from 0 to 45, but I thought I was doing 60 really early, and I learned these rules, these precepts that were, this is the way you do a fundraising auction, and I insisted on following the path. I knew the right way to do things, and when I got in to consult on an event, I wanted to show how much I knew. And I tried so hard, and I would get into these committee meetings, and I would grapple with executive directors over where the placement of the funding should be, or how many lots we should do, or when we should do the auction. And I made some enemies in those first few years, and I did a lot of good events, but at a certain point, I met my first really big exception. And it took me some time to realize this. Hillcrest School. It's a public school in Oakland, California. Started working with them in 2005. They were my 35th event, so by then I knew everything there was to know about fundraising. And I immediately saw all these ways that I could impact their event with consulting. They had everybody eat dinner downstairs and then come upstairs and sit theater style for an auction. So I got them to get tables so they could at least, round tables so that they could at least drink together, if not eat together during the auction. They'd never seen a fund and eat before. So immediately I was able to introduce them to this concept that since then has raised over $500,000. And in return, they introduced me to buy-in parties, or what Jill Marie, yesterday the exercise, progressive parties, right? They did buy-ins. And in that first year, 10 of their live auction lots were buy-in parties. And God, oh, it sounds like a lot because it is. And I hated those things. They took forever. And how could you tell? Well, there's 16 couples that are going to go to this thing and wait, how many hands are in the air? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It looks like more than 16, so let's go up a few more increments. Oh, I totally hated buy-ins. Spent the next 2 years trying to get them to move away from doing so many buy-in parties in their auction. Tried to get them to focus more on what they call winner-take-all lots, single buy-in lots. And after 3 years, we went back and we started looking at the data. And what I found was that the winner-take-all lots had gone from about $2,000 max bid to $2,800 max bid, which was decent, but that's not really, it didn't account for how much more money they were making in the live auction. I mean, their live auction had gone from making $40,000 a year to nearly $100,000, not counting the funding, which was gravy on top of that. And we said, well, where's all this extra money coming from? It's from the buy-ins. The buy-in parties that they were doing were up significantly. The most they'd ever sold a single slot to attend a buy-in party for before that was $600 per person. And on that third year, we sold a bike getaway for 9 guys to go up to Tahoe and spend a weekend up in Tahoe for $2,000 a person. And it was, I mean, that's an $18,000 lot right there. And what I learned is that Hillcrest is an insanely unique community. They actually like each other. They like to spend a lot of time together. At their party, they like to costume. The Hollywood theme party, the Hollywood sign, that couple, I love them. But one of the things the chair on that third year said, she took me aside, she said, Greg, no one in our event wants to be a tall poppy. No one in our public school community wants to stand out so far and above everybody else that it's obvious that they're spending more money, but they'll do it together. They will, if there's other people willing to spend that much, then they'll do it together. Now we do about half of their live auction as buy-ins. And I wouldn't recommend that everywhere else, but for them, it works, because they're an exception to what I think is that rule. The rule being, most crowds don't get buy-in parties. It's hard to introduce them. So I learned to identify and embrace the exception in that moment. And what I learned is it doesn't mean don't consult. It doesn't mean if you know something is different, don't just withhold it and not tell them about it, because that's not good consulting. Good consulting is to think through, why are you rejecting a suggestion from a committee member? What is it about that? Where is it coming from? Why don't you believe that this would be good to do? And recognize that there's a difference between agreeing to do something and agreeing with it. And by that I mean you can say, look, from my experience, I don't believe that we should do the fund a need first. Every auction I've ever done, we've not had the fund a need first. I don't think it's going to work, but I am willing to work with you on this one. Just knowing, and put it in writing too, if it's really, if it's a huge enough deal. I recommend if you're going to go against something that you believe is the right way to do, make sure you follow up after that meeting and put it in writing and let them know, just so they have an opportunity to see that, and in case their decision doesn't work out, it doesn't come back to bite you in the butt. Say, well, why didn't you tell us the fund a need wouldn't do well if we put it right before everything and nobody was warmed up? So one thing I wanted to take a second to do was identify what some of the rules are, the best practices of doing a fundraising auction. And what I want everybody to do, you've all got sheets of paper, I want you to take 2 minutes, no more, because we're tight. Take a couple of minutes, and I want you to write down your top 3 rules of consulting on a benefit auction. What are the top 3 things that you think should definitely be in place at every event? I like watching Scott Robertson think.
Restate that question.
What are the top three rules of doing a benefit auction that you would imbue upon a client? Few seconds to wrap it up. That good? Good. So what I'm going to ask is that people raise your hand, give me one rule off your list, and then explain it. And then if anybody else has that rule and their explanation is radically different than yours, please share it. Otherwise, just hold on to that and don't, because I don't want to go through everybody's list of 3 and I don't want to wind up with redundancies, but Renee, you're closest to me. Give me one.
Set timeline for the event.
Set timeline for the event. And what do you mean by that?
Meaning that we have actually a show run, basically, where we know time of arrival and a set period of time to be allowed for speakers, the live auction, the fund a need, where we know that what they're investing in, their art, their performance, or whatever their show is it going to start at a time that makes sense for all attendees?
Everybody hear that?
No.
So she said set a timeline for the run of show from arrival time and sound check to, I'm going to add spotter training and all that other stuff to that so that you know exactly what the flow is and you've got it set up to an idea. You've got it set up to what you believe is the ideal flow.
Fund a need? Recommend a fund a need?
Recommend doing a fund a need. I think that one's simple enough that we don't need to hide it. Everybody know what a fund a need is. Murray's got an addition to that.
Never use the envelope system for the fund a need.
Never use the envelope system for the fund a need. Can you explain the envelope system, please?
There's an envelope at each one of your tables, and in the center of your table is a large manila envelope. Quietly, would you please write down on a check what you'd be willing to give?
Oh, so fun.
Hide that in your pocket, take it home with you. Public giving induces public giving.
I want to add to the run of show. It's so important to share that with everybody, the band, the kitchen, so that everybody on the committee knows exactly what the run of show is.
Andrew?
Invest in a quality distributed sound system
Distributed? Explain that.
where you have speakers around the room instead of just a wall of speakers in the front of the room.
Oh, short throat.
Okay. Who else has got one? Yeah.
Auctioneer sets the order of the live auction items.
Okay. Yes. Hire you. I can think of an exception to that rule.
There's 79 other people in the room.
No boring speeches.
No boring speeches. And how do you prevent boring speeches?
Video presentation.
Go through and review the speech and also have a definite hook time for that speaker. If you see me walking towards you, you know to wrap up, things like that.
What if that speaker is Coach K from Duke?
Same thing.
You can-
He's there to help us. I did one with Oliver North, and we talked about it, and we had, his speech was 10 minutes, and we let him go 10 minutes because he was the feature for that night.
Uh-huh.
But it's still not 30 minutes, it's still concise enough.
Understood. Yes.
What I think finding out right away in that first meeting, what is your objective?
Good one. What is the
What is your
goal?
objective and your goal of this
Objective
event?
of
Is
the
it
event.
raising funds, or are you honoring this family that's been such a big icon to your organization, or what is it? So we're all on the same page right
Nice. Yes, Kurt.
Audience development.
What do
You
you
have
mean
to have
by-
the right people in the room. If you want to raise a lot of money, you can't have a lot of donut munchers and people who are just ready for the show.
He said,
A captive audience as well, like being able to have the audience have their attention.
Captive audience. So how do you create a captive audience?
I mean, I guess it has the idea of programmatically directing your attention to the auction or the whatever, not letting them run around and do all kinds of.
Put a sit-down dinner.
Yeah, a dinner is a way, theater.
It's a big question. Yeah, in the far back in the red.
In response to the captive audience, make sure all other functions cease for your live auction. Close everything else, no other activities except for the live auction going on.
And you know what's funny is I actually consult exactly the opposite way. I prefer to have them eat. I prefer to have the wait staff serve while I'm doing the auction.
No, I'm referring to other functions, like a casino night.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We want everybody to come give us money during the fun to eat, but we're gonna let them go gamble instead. Yeah. That's okay. And hang on, you've already. Are you adding on to that?
I was gonna add on to what Kurt said about audience development. Define pre-sale to the client. That doesn't mean that they sell that item before you get there. That means they get the money ahead of time.
Yes.
Gotta have bid numbers.
Got to have bid numbers. Yes, I was waiting for this one.
Large.
And how do you? Is it just okay to just give those bid numbers out willy-nilly? I would add to that attached to individuals' names, preferably tied to their credit card numbers. Kurt.
I think a lot of times people forget is how to engage the cause to the audience and thus reminding them that it's a fundraiser. How do you engage, make sure that if you have the cause, that's going to motivate them to give money?
Expedite, check in, check out.
Expedite, check in, and check out.
All the items need to be sold without a break. And a lot of people say, well, we sell 3 items, and then we're gonna do this, and then we sell 3 more items, and do this.
Amen.
Yes.
Get the money early.
Get the money early. What money?
All of it.
Don't don't have a band playing and a party started and have your auction later in the evening.
So
Get the money.
stick first, carrot later.
In the evening, yeah.
Anyone else? Scott.
Don't spend all the crowd's energy dancing during dinner to a rock band. They've only got so much energy available, and let them save that for the live auction. And then if they have energy left, then let the band crank up and play rock and roll tunes.
Okay. Wendy.
When you're consulting with
your client, make sure that they know there is a sweet spot in the evening. You're in a race, time against money. And when you put it to them that way, they kind of go, ooh, well, where is that spot? Because we want to raise the most money. So if that is something you can communicate to the committee ahead of time, they're much more willing to go with your timeline.
Understood. Any good one? Yes, Lynn?
Elaborating on the one that said, what is the goal or the objective of the event? It's finding out, are they going to have a party, or are they going to focus on mission?
Party or fundraiser, the eternal question. Thank you. And if you could please, will everybody hand their 3 rule slips to the end of the row so that we can collect them and have them forever to remember you by. Now, for each rule, and I know it's going to seem silly, for each rule there is an exception to that rule. And we can get into some of those rules, like having paddle numbers and whatnot, might be unbreakable rules. But other rules, like not having gambling during, there may be the exception to it. There may be the exception to it. And I want you to be open to the concept of at least pretending to, if not actually being open to the exception of the rule for you and your clients. It's not just for the client, it's for you as well, because eventually, if you go in thinking everything you know is the right and only way to do a fundraising auction, eventually you're going to miss out on learning something important. There's going to be an exception that comes along that truly changes your mind. So I've got a little exercise designed. Everybody can chat, it's fine. I've got a little exercise that I designed for all of y'all to sort of to illustrate this. And what we're going to do is we're going to break up into groups, and basically there's 6 people groups. So if you look down the row and there's 6 people in your row, then that's just perfect. Everybody is going to have a pre-assigned role for an imaginary client's first committee meeting. So I feel sorry for the person who has to play the auctioneer in this perspective, because everyone else gets to play all of those people who drive you crazy every time you're in a meeting with them. Or not every time, but you get to play those people who drive you crazy. You get to be the event chair with an agenda, the development director, committee member, etc. And I know, everybody here is role-playing exercise and they roll their eyes because Wendy Lambert sets the bar so high for improvisation during a role-playing exercise. But I want you to just embrace the moment to drive an auctioneer crazy. To embrace the moment to be that person who you're butting heads with in committee meetings, because it really, the goal is for you to start thinking from their perspective. So you're going to conduct the initial planning meeting. There's an assigned lead for every meeting, so once you get your packets, you're going to have a couple of minutes to read up on who you are. If you're the lead, it says you're the lead, it gives you what you're going to be doing. You're going to be making some of these decisions: when to do the auction, how many lots, how opening bids, and so on and so forth, where to place the fund in need. And so basically, what I'm going to do is start passing these out. So group 1, the first group that did youth aid. Can I get from you how long this year's auction is going to be?
45. Hey, we're group 1.
45 minutes? How many lots is that?
4.
Really?
Yeah.
You're pretty hard on that.
You're pretty hard on that. What's the, where's the fun that need going to be?
Right at the beginning.
During dinner.
And how are the opening bids being decided?
We're gonna start bidding at 10 times the value of the item and then drop it down to 10% very quickly and then start from there.
Hey!
We went with the envelope system for you turn in your envelope to the people with the collection.
I am glad to see you guys took this seriously. Group number 6. Group number 6, the other youth aid group.
Oh. We have 45 minutes last year for 6 lots. Oh, sorry, this year's going to be 18 minutes with 6 lots for the live auction.
Okay, where's the fund to need?
It was during, went first last year, and since I'm the executive director, despite all the other people, we're going to do it first again because it worked.
Okay. And opening bids.
Start low and see where it goes. That's what our auction chairman does.
Although it's a high-powered executive, I thought I could make it terrible.
And was there a third youth aid group? Yes, okay.
All right, our length is going to be 45 minutes.
How many lots?
8 lots, and that includes the appeal.
Okay, and where's the fund need?
Prior to the live. Yeah, so we're going to do a heads or tails, and then we'll do the fund and need, and then we'll do the live item.
You added a heads or tails. How creative. I'm serious. And opening bids.
30%, and there's no discussion.
30% value? So, obviously there were conflicts in the meeting. Let's skip because we're pushing for time. Did you break any rules? Did you break any rules of what you think are the best ways to do a fundraising auction?
Yes.
We didn't listen to your auctioneer at all. Didn't listen to your auctioneer at all. And everyone else, is that, I mean, like, that happens, right? The auctioneers in that group, did you feel comfortable with the decisions that your group made? And let me ask you the real question. Let me ask you the real question. Do you think this event is going to succeed?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. Despite that it will succeed. Well, I'm actually, each of these events is based on an event that I or one of my coworkers has done. This is based on Larkin Street Youth Services in San Francisco. In 2012, they had Ronnie Lott and Harris Barton. Sports fans will recognize them as famous 49ers. And in 2012, they led the crowd in getting super fired up after the speaker, and then went straight into asking people for money. And it was Ronnie and Lott that helped. I mean, it was Ronnie and Harris that helped did the fund and need with them. And in 2013, I fought tooth and nail in that committee to try and get it moved to doing the fund and need in the middle. And I use this phrase, and even today I still think of it as losing the battle. I wound up saying, well, okay, we'll do the fund and need first your way, and I will invest every bit of my capacity as a fundraiser to try and make that work, because the committee, as you noticed, just wasn't having it. And the fund and need this year set a record. It did better than they'd ever done it before. And in a follow-up meeting, they said, well, what do you think of the fund and need? And I said, well, you know, I think I'm really happy for you that set a record, but I mean this, I remain convinced that we left 30% on the table. That there was a lot of money that we could have got because the crowd wasn't warmed up before we got to the fund and need. We came out pretty cold, and the guys who this year, we didn't have Ronnie Lott and Harris Barton, we had Mark Buell and the captain of the Team Oracle's boat, which is getting the butts whipped in the America's Cup right now, as the guys, and while popular, they just weren't as good at getting everybody fired up to give money. Groups 2, 7, and 12, Art Vantage. What's the timing of this year's auction?
Hour and 45 minutes. Hey, it's art. Sure, next time.
Understood. And where is, the big question is, did you agree to do the auction after dinner upstairs in the tent?
Yeah, we're going to do it in the tent.
Doing it in the tent, okay.
That was our original idea.
Type of auction lots?
We're doing Mitch Stewart's hooking us up with some art trips to New York. A mixture.
And opening bids.
We're going 50%.
Good for you. Group 6, so 7, sorry. I typed there, I'll fix that.
That's us, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, group 7.
Yeah.
Timing of this year's auction?
Yes.
Same time as last year, you mean? Just kidding.
Yeah.
First rule of comedy is it's not supposed to. What's that?
No, so the timing of this year's auction, again, is like last year because we really have enjoyed what we've made of our success, and consulting with our auctioneer and event planner that we liked it right at the end of dinner. So I don't have a run a show at the moment, but that's our timing.
So, but are you moving up to the tent or not?
We are. We thought that was an interesting idea because what we really, our money man actually kind of liked that. Our big banking guy, and he said that some of those guys, though they wouldn't, not sure if they're going to spend any money, they would like to party. So we're not undecided as far as where we would like to be. But we like the tent idea, and we'd like to work a little bit further on seeing if we can make something special for them and also raising more money for artists like me.
Interesting. What type of auction lots are you gonna be doing?
Well, it's time to showcase all of our talents of my friends that are artists, including myself, because we actually love the opportunity to work here at our advantage, and if we can showcase more, as we have heard yesterday here at the NEA, the more you spend, the more your art is worth.
Am I correct in presuming that means all art?
Art is our thing.
And opening bids?
In opening bids, well, we're pretty proud of the things that we do, so we would like to see an increase a little bit there as far as we start our bids, so somewhere around 75%. Because we have some big people coming in, because our executive director, money man, Kyle, says he can do it.
Excellent. And group 12.
We're going to do everything our auctioneer said. Was Renee.
Okay.
The timing of this year's auction is going to be 45 minutes. We are going to have dinner and the auction in the tent. We are going to leave the gallery open for the 30 days prior to when it had been shut down. We are reducing the size of our live auction and putting some of the art pieces online. And we are adding some experiential packages to be a part of the live auction. And we are going to be doing our fund to need prior to the live auction.
You're kidding.
No, and the explanation is because
We have an honoree.
we have an honoree.
I so admire you for going for it.
No, we have an honoree that's going to be receiving an award, and we have some of her art students that are going to be on stage, and we're going to be conducting the Fun to Need with them still on the stage during the dinner, and then we'll lead into the live after that.
Hunty!
Dun, dun, dun. What's the opener of the opening bid?
30 to 35%.
Art is subjective. We want everyone to have a buy-in opportunity.
Okay. So, these meetings, we'll skip to, did you break any rules?
Yeah.
I mean, group 2, group 7, group 12, did you feel like you broke any rules in putting this together and doing this?
I don't know about breaking rules like for ours, but what I did like is that I think we all pulled from reading these sheets, and I think everybody can agree in the room, we've all encountered the person that you've been trying to do role play. And being able to see how I could make that work and actually watch the pressure. Forrest was our auctioneer, and watch the pressures of how he had to respond. And the very first thing is, Kurt started out and he was our big money man. He took the lead because he is the money, and said that he likes this party. And the very first reaction by Forrest was, I don't think this is going to work for us. It's funny. But, again, for us, really, Greg, I think that the importance of, what I got out of, getting together is that Forrest came up with some good ideas. Keith it was our event planner, and trying to get that together, to make something work. And again, we didn't get as deep as some others did, but I think what came out for all of us is the fact that there was some progress of where we wanted to go because of the suggestions.
Good.
Our only deviation was that since we had the tent right in the parking lot, they had something else to do. People were touring the museum during the early part of it.
Right.
But we made them come in before long.
Yeah. Anything
For
to add?
hours? No, we just really improved the event. We've been together for 7 years, so it was time to defibrillate it and increase revenue and reduce costs.
God bless you. So, I wish you could come to my committee meeting sometime.
Question, Greg. When they had said they were going to do the fund need early, you kind of
yeah.
resistant to that. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, I just based on Larkin Street. I mean, again, I think everybody has their own professional consultation style and their own experience. It comes back to basing it on my experience. My experience has been that doing the fund the need first doesn't give me time to be able to build a relationship with the crowd and to value money in advance. I mean, the best thing that an auction can do is have this irrational philanthropic moment that takes place where somebody spends $10,000 on a dinner or a bottle of wine or a piece of kids' art. And once somebody's done that, then just giving $1,000 is cheap by comparison. So once you've devalued that money, there's one, and two, if I come out cold, especially for a new crowd, it's a big jump to go from, hi, my name is Greg Quiroga, give me $10,000, right? So, but over the course of the auction, I established that I am credible, I'm not a charlatan, I'm not going to try and run the bids up on you, I'm going to handle everybody, I start engaging bidders and building a relationship, and by the time we get to the fund the need, I don't try to quiet anybody down during an auction. I'm no shh kind of guy. Let them party. I trust that, where'd Andrew go? I trust that we've got the sound system in place that's going to be able to take care of my needs as an auctioneer. And the only time I do ask everybody to quiet down is during the fund the need. And by then I have built up the goodwill and the credibility to get the entire crowd focused, to do a fund the need pitch, in the same vein as all those three wonderful people we saw yesterday, Lynn, Jonathan, and Sterling, to do an emotional appeal and then go with it. And so to me personally and professionally, I like to have the auction before it. That's why I thought you were joking at first, because the first one before you was the whole conflict in their group was to get the fund the need to go first. Yes, sir.
I just wondered from the other auctioneers in the room, when I get that question, I always talk about the fact that the people in the room that are be giving during the fund the need don't know if they've got, by that time, they don't know if they've got their silent auction item, if they've got their live auction item. And I tell the committee, look, those folks that didn't get the items they wanted in the silent or live are now going to be able to participate in the fund the need because it's following all that. So we get every dollar before they leave. Has anybody else not seen that as a possibility, or
it's a good theory. I don't believe it's the case. I believe that people come with a set dollar amount in mind that they are willing to give, but I believe that there is a certain crowd that is there to get something, and if they don't get something, then they are less likely to just give you the money. But that crowd is finite. That's a very small percentage of the crowd. The rest of the crowd is the other small percentage of the crowd is the crowd who is there to give you money specifically, and so then there's this middle group who just sort of there for the party or because their friends or their board, an associate invited them, and it's a matter of setting everything up so that they actually buy into the event and the organization as a whole. In the name of time, I'm going to move on and tell you that this is based on an organization in Napa named DeRosa. It's an art organization, beautiful place. If you ever get to Napa, you should schedule a good half day to go check out DeRosa. Doing their event for 8 years now. And the first 3 years I was with them, I fought tooth and nail to get non-art items. That's how they refer to anything that is not art. Non-art items into their auction. And we even one year had these big 6-liter bottles of wine etched and painted with 3 of their most famous paintings from in DeRosa. And we thought, these are going to be great. We've had trips to New York to go see great museums and get VIP access, and every single one of those things has tanked. Their crowd isn't interested in anything except art. DeRosa has built its reputation by being the leading edge in going out and recognizing new artists and engaging them and buying their works and supporting new artists, and everybody comes to that auction to get art from new artists or from famous Bay Area artists. 5 years ago, 5 years into it, they opted to make what I call the big move. They used to do their event in their gallery, and they would have to take all of the art out of the gallery for a month to be able to have their dinner in the gallery, and they decided that that was too long to have their entire gallery shut down, to not have patrons coming, so they built a tent. They erect a tent for this event, and they have everybody still have dinner in the gallery, and the reason is that it gives new people who've never been invited before a chance to go in and see what DeRosa is about, and have dinner with their friends and talk about all the amazing art before then coming up and having me get them to spend more than they should. Yes, sir.
So
When this committee is getting together to select which pieces of art are going into the live auction,
Yes.
what process do they use? Do they bring in a jury situation?
So the committee that selects the art, well, you've got the executive director who's been the executive director of art organizations for years. You've got an artist on the committee who is an artist and also has collected works in DeRosa. And you've got a few other people. They have an art selection committee that operates completely separate from the rest of the auction committee, and they bring us a list of, here's the art for the live auction, here's the art for the silent.
How many items in the live?
How many items in that live? I think we're at 20, 22 this year. We had a couple of, we had to try and balance out the flow and bring in some smaller pieces because everything this year is valued too high.
What I want to know
Yes.
is, in the 8-year period, you had said, now, I kept pushing for X and it just tanked. How do you then go back to your committee and go,
My bad.
I screwed up, or
No,
I'm
you're just
sorry,
joking.
or what is it that?
Well, but it isn't obvious. It isn't.
You're still the expert, but.
Well, it's learning to embrace, I mean, it's the whole point of this discussion is learning to embrace that exception and be able to make a mistake and move forward from it, to say something, to recognize when something that you've been trying to make happen, one of the rules that I've been trying to enforce. And so I got them to buy into this vision of we should do other than art. Because I mean, one of the things is they pay the artists a 25% commission on every piece they sell, sale value price, not retail value price. And when I first heard that, I thought, that's horrible. We're losing all this money in the auction. Well, actually no, because over time, there are hundreds of art auctions that take place, and all these artists get hit up all the time, and they're gonna save their good pieces for DeRosa, because they know that DeRosa sells for over retail, and they're gonna make 25% back. So to go to the art, to the mistakes that we were making in terms of trying to get non-art stuff in there, they bought in, they tried with me. I mean, we had people, and so they actually do have one non-art lot in the auction every year. And it is a buy-in party that is done by a major donor at their house, and we can sell spots for that at $250 per person for 50 people. And that's good math.
Okay, but you managed to screw up and then have them book you again and again for 8 years.
Well, but the screw up, it isn't that catastrophic. It isn't like I said, well, let's do this, and then suddenly the auction imploded, and everybody went home with scars on their faces. I mean, no. What happened was that a donor brought something to the table, and it didn't sell well, right? And so the guy who put all of the effort into getting those bottles of wine etched and painted, he feels bad because his donation has not been handled well. And he and I had a separate conversation where I took him aside and I said, Ira, I'm really sorry. He's like, me too. I thought, and you just say, well, the crowd, I mean, you have to acknowledge that it didn't work and identify what it is. This crowd wants the art, nothing else. I mean, that's all you can do. Moving forward, because I don't want to eat into Wendy's time. Timing of the fund and need.
Right after the auction.
Auction catalog.
Yes.
Okay, number of lots. 9? Thank you. Group 8. No, it says 6, but it's supposed to be 8. This is what I get for
Instead of a 30-minute window, it's compressed to a 10-minute speech with the CFO and the little boy.
catalog.
No.
Number of lots.
7.
And was there a group 13? Apparently not. Okay. You guys didn't sound like you broke too many rules.
One of the, not on there, one of the rules that we keep talking about internally is this 60% opening bid. We keep talking back here, and what's the use of opening bids? I mean, they're going to sell for what they sell for, and that was sort of the rule breaker that we talked about after the event, or after the little meeting was over with. Back when we hired and fired Dan several times.
Interesting. And opening bid, I could do a whole hour and a half on opening bids alone. So I'm happy to chat with you on my perspective on that afterwards.
I want to say that with this committee, we got about halfway through all the discussions and arguments, and I said, what's the date of this again? And they said next Friday. I said, you know what, I'm moved on that date. This is a tough committee.
Move Forward is based on an actual event, and they refuse to have anything but a 30-minute break between the auction and the Fund the Need. And the auctioneer actually would be fired for pushing too hard because their CFO is no. They insist on having a 30-minute break between the end of the auction and the beginning of the Fund the Need. That 30 minutes is filled with speech and talk, and my associate who did that event the very first time tried his best to get them to not have that 30 minutes, but the reality is that they did it their way and they raised over $150,000 in the Fund the Need. And as a result, they do it that way every time, and now they built it up to a $450,000 Fund the Need. 30-minute break every time. $450,000 says no, it does not lose momentum. 4, 9, and 14, Karem Preschool.
All right, type of dinner to sit down. Placement of Fund the Needs in the middle.
Number cakes.
We're keeping 11, but we're changing how they're sold.
Explain.
Well, we decided that 11 cakes is too many, so we would auction off one and maybe and get the highest price we could for that, and maybe put the other ones in a silent auction.
That's not what you told us.
I sense conflict. Is it group 9? Is there another Karem over here?
Yep. Sit down dinner.
Yes, sir.
On the Fund the Need, we moved it to about 2/3 of the way through the live auction.
Okay, number of cakes.
We stuck with the same number of cakes because there was really some cake-loving people on this committee. but we changed how we sold them. We didn't sell them all at one time. We spread them out.
Ah, interesting. And was there a 14th? I know. You took 5 minutes of my time, Kurt.
Okay, 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'll just give you the realities on this. They fought tooth and nail to not have to do 11 cakes to open up the beginning of an auction. And they said, no, we want 11 cakes to open up the auction. That's very much what we're convinced to do. Committee stuck to their guns. Night of the auction, the average sale of the cake price is over $1,000 each.
Wow.
So they do 11 cakes and they make $11,000, and you know, as wrong as I think that is, I still don't like to open with 11 of the same thing, but you know, that their group does, and who can argue with $11,000 on homemade cakes? Do we have Centenaro School? Let's just get to the one. What type of Fund the Need did y'all wind up doing?
Top to bottom, doing it third way through.
Your auctioneer actually convinced you to go with the top to bottom Fund the Need.
Our auctioneer didn't have a choice.
Wait, top to bottom or last man standing?
We decided not to do the last man standing.
Interesting. And was there a second Centenaro School group?
Yeah, we ended up with last man standing.
Okay, and I know that I'm really pushed on time, so let me just say that this is the one group that I am not going to name the school because it's based on a private school in the Bay Area that I'm going to let remain nameless. The year before they hired us, they did a last man standing Fund the Need. For those of you who know what that means, that they had everybody stand up. Who's in for $100? Wrote all the names down. Who's in for $250? Wrote all the names down. Who's in for $500? Wrote all the names down. $1,000, $2,500, $5,000. And one woman got a bee in her bonnet about it being a last man standing, and she stayed up until $50,000, right? And everybody's like, we're doing that again next year. And we fought so hard, like this just doesn't sound like a good thing to do. And it's one of our junior auctioneers was the guy who wound up doing that event, and he wound up spending so much time trying to solve other problems like the sound system and all these other things that he denigrated his ability the night of to actually be a good fundraiser. And when they did the last man standing that year, she was there, and everybody else thought, you know, I don't want to have to spend $45,000 to see how far she's going to go. And so they sat down at 5. and their last woman standing the following year was reduced by reduced significantly. They went from raising like $80-something thousand to raising 30. And of course, we took the blame for that. We got, what does it say? Yeah, okay. We got fired for that one. So the last thoughts. Are there exceptions to every rule? I can certainly think of a few rules that I personally would not want to bend on. Everybody having a paddle, for example. I think that, but do the auction in the order of the catalog, right? But the thing is that I've arrived at these conclusions through experimentation. I've done an auction without paddles. I've done an auction not in the order of the catalog. And while I don't recommend the experimentation on your end, I'd like to say that I was willing to try it once. As Johnny Danger says, once. So we've defined some of the rules. Hopefully you've got to enjoy doing the thing from the client's perspective. And the one thing I really hope is that you leave with the intention that the next time you're in a committee meeting, you're at least able to acknowledge the exception, even if you ultimately choose not to agree with it. Be willing to see where people are coming from and entertain their perspective before dismissing it because it does not agree with what you've learned. Thank you very much.